All right, how to transform a melody using chords. I'm going to be using the main melodic theme from my piece Un Choix to demonstrate how much a chord progression can influence the impact of your melody. I'm going to go ahead and play the initial theme from the beginning of that piece. All right, what you just heard harmonically, meaning the chords, is about as basic as it gets. I start with an A major, which is the key that we're in, which means A is tonic. So I'm starting on my tonic, or the tone that everything is building off of. And I go to my dominant 7, which is E7. And I know that because if A is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, E is 5, so it is my dominant 7. So again, we have our 1 chord, or our tonic, A, to our 5-7. The 5-7 repeats. Then we go back to tonic, which is A. So this time, I'm going to play that chord progression with the melody without the actual movement of the chords. Now, again, that's about as basic as it gets. The second half of that chord progression, where the 5-7 repeats and goes back to our 1 chord, that is at the end of the phrase, and that moment is something we call a cadence. Now, because I'm going from my dominant 7 back to my tonic, that's known as a full cadence. So it's a complete phrase. And you'll notice that at the end, it feels like it's done. It's a full statement, it's done. So now what I'm going to do is play the exact same melody. I'm going to add a couple of little trills in there, but the melody is the exact same with a changing chord progression underneath, and we're going to notice how it changes the feel. All right, let's describe what just happened. I started out that progression the exact same way I did at the beginning. I start with my 1 chord, then I go to my dominant 7, but instead of repeating that dominant chord, I go to a fully diminished 7 chord. And instead of resolving my phrase back on my home tonic chord of A, I go to an F sharp minor. Now that changes everything, because in the key of A, remember A is 1. Let's find out what F sharp is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I end my phrase on a minor 6. Now you'll remember earlier I mentioned a full cadence that ended on our home chord. When you have the end of a phrase come to a moment of pause on the 6, that's known as something as a deceptive cadence. And the utility of a deceptive cadence is that it obviously feels like it's not done. So I'm going to play that again with just basic chords, and we'll notice that when I get to that final chord, it feels like I haven't finished what I'm saying. Now I want to remind you that that's the exact same melody from the beginning. But that felt completely different because I changed the chords underneath. And the nice thing about that deceptive cadence, you'll remember that I said it feels like it's not done, which I proved that to be true by adding a tag on at the end that goes like this. So changing that chord progression underneath the exact same melody allowed me to move somewhere else. So let's recap what happened here. The first time I play the melody, I ended with what's called a full cadence because I just hang out on the basic tonic and dominant 7 chords. Tonic, dominant 7, dominant 7, back to tonic. Whereas the second one, it starts on tonic, goes to the dominant 7, and then it goes to a fully diminished 7. Let's talk about that chord real quick. How I can get to a fully diminished 7 from my 5/7. These fully diminished 7 chords are extremely useful for a lot of reasons, which I'm not going to go into right now. I'm sure I'll have a video later on about dominant 7 chords. Or sorry, not dominant 7 chords, but fully diminished 7 chords. So the way that I get there is there's actually only one note that changes from my dominant 7 to my diminished 7. And that's this note. It goes to here. And the nice thing about a fully diminished 7 chord is I can go really kind of wherever I want. But in this instance, I'm using this note to step up to this note. And that's how I get to my 6. All right, for you composers and songwriters out there, just test out keeping your melody but changing your progression and notice how much it changes the feel of your music. For those of you who just enjoy listening to music, notice how much the chord progressions and melodies influence each other in whatever you're listening to. Now below, there's going to be a link to the sheet music of Un Schwa if you'd like to follow along while listening to it or if you'd like to learn it. I'm also going to be including a link to the full recording. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.